Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to CodeTav Management. How are you? So, if you were ever written Java code that talks to a database, you probably started with plain JDBC, right? So, and if you did, so you know the pain. So today we will mainly discuss about the Spring Boot JPA, the JDBC pain point, then why we move to the Warim and uh, like we also will talk about the opening connections, writing the raw SQL streams, then the caching exceptions, and manually closing the resources just to read a single row of data. So it works, but it's exhausting to maintain. Okay, so today we will just discuss, or today we are tracing the evolution of the database access in Java. Actually. Okay, so we are going to map out the entire architecture from the raw JDBC up to Spring's JDBC template, and finally to the magic of the JPA and the Hibernate. So by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is happening under the hood, like when you save an entity to your database. So before we write any code, so we need to understand the chain of the command. Okay. So the chain is like think of your application like a layered cake. So the flow looks like this. Your application, then JPA, Hibernate, JDBC, database driver, and finally database. So let's break down. So the first one is JPA. So JPA means the Java Persistence API. Okay. So this is just a specification. So it's a set of rules on a piece of paper that says how object relational mapping should work. Okay. So some set of rules are there, actually, okay, which says like how the object relational mapping should work. Okay. So now the next one is Hibernate. So Hibernate is the actual implementation of this JPA rules. So JPA is the interface and Hibernate is its implementation. So it does the heavy lifting. Next is Java database connectivity. So the low level API that actually communicates with the database. But remember, JDBC doesn't implement anything itself. So to implement those things, database driver are there. So the vendor specific code like MySQL or PostgreSQL drivers that does the real physical connections. So JDBC is basically the low level API that actually communicates with the database, but actually database driver actually do the physical connections. And next the database, you know about that. So when you write the modern JPA code internally, Hibernate is still just generating the raw JDBC calls to your database driver. Okay. So first of all, you just need to know like what is JDBC actually. So JDBC just the Java database connectivity. What I have told it is the low level API. So it provides the interfaces for what? Like for connecting to database, execute the SQL queries, and read the results. But JDBC doesn't implement anything. The real work is done by the database drivers. Okay, these database drivers are like for MySQL, it has com.mysql.cj JDBC driver. For PostgreSQL also warg.postgresql.driver. H2 also has warg.h2.driver. Now, why plain JDBC is painful? So it is painful because for every query, you must do the following things. What are the things? You need to load the driver, create the connection, create a statement, execute the query, handle the SQL exceptions, close the resources manually, manage the connection pool. There's many steps you need to do. That's why plain GDBC is painful. So this leads to boilerplate code and bugs and memory leaks. Those things are there. So now we have the Spring Boot plus JDBC, which will make the JDBC template. So Spring Boot solves the most of this using the JDBC template actually. So like when you will write this JDBC template dot query, this select star from users, comma row mapper. So when you will do this thing, then Spring Boot will automatically manage the things like it will open the connection, it will execute the query, it will map the result, it will handle the exceptions, it will close the connections. So you need not to manually do all those things. If you will only use the plain JDBC, you need to do those things manually. But if you will use this JDBC template, then with the JDBC as Spring Boot came into picture, so Spring Boot will handle those things. So now, how we will setting up the JDBC in Spring Boot? So to setting up the JDBC, to use it, we just need the JDBC startup and a database driver. So here I have used the H2 for this example. So one dependency I have used this Spring Boot starter JDBC, and another one I have used this H2, this driver I have used. Okay. And in properties file, in the application.properties file, you need to use the application properties like the data source URL, then the driver name. This class name I have written here as well, right? Um, Here, org.h2.driver. So this one. So you need to add your driver class name, then the username of your data source, then password. Password you can keep it in your secret managers or through the HashiCorp vault anyway. Then the H2 console enabled you can set as true, right? So now I will talk about the connection pooling, which is the Hikari CP. So Spring Boot basically uses the Hikari CP by default. So you can set the minimum connections, maximum connections, and you can configure it in your application YAML or your properties file. That's spring.datasource.hikari.maximum pool size. Then spring.datasource.hikari.minimum idle. Okay, those things you can set. Next is the custom data source. So like actually these things will come into picture in the connection pooling. That's why this hacker is repeat. So now, if you ever need to configure your data source manually using a Java config instead of properties, you can define it exactly like this. So in your for your class data source config, you can set this configuration under, and under that in the bin data source you can put. Okay, so here you can also create the object of this Hikari data source, and you can set the driver class name, the JDBC URL. You can set the username here. You can set the password here. Okay, so if you ever need to configure your data source manually using the Java config instead of properties, you also can do this. Otherwise, in the properties file is the okay. Okay, so like I also will tell about like this the most used JDBC template methods what we use. The first one is like update. So this update method will help to do the insertion, updation, deletion. Then query. Query for getting the multiple rows, we do the query. Then query for object means get a single value. Now query for list, get a list of values. Now the next important question, like why we still need JPA? We have the JDBC templates and all, right? But why we still need the JPA? So JDBC template is powerful, but you still write the SQL, right? So JPA removes even. Okay. So initially, I have told you earlier we had the JDBC only. After that, the JDBC template, and finally we are moving to the JPA. So see the history. JDBC in the ancient, then in mid-level history, you can have the JDBC template, and then you are using the JPA. So again, I am telling JDBC template is powerful. It's okay, but you still write query like SQL query. So JPA removes those things as well. So for tables, we have the entities. For rows, we have the objects. For SQL, we have the method calls. So that's where Hibernate and JPA becomes magical. Okay, Hibernate plus JPA. So again, I'm telling JPA is the interface and implementation is done by Hibernate. So that's why the picture just see application and JPA, Hibernate, JDBC, database driver, and database. Okay. So as a summary, I can say you like JDBC teaches you how the database works. The Spring JDBC makes it clean. Then JPA makes it beautiful and scalable. So Spring JDBC and the JDBC template make the database access clean and safe. But there is still one problem. You were still writing the raw SQL strings that I have told, and that's why the like just see like you are writing the raw SQL strings. But if the database schema changes, then your SQL strings break, right? So what if you could turn SQL tables into Java entities, rows into these objects, and SQL queries into the simple method calls. So that things actually do the JPA. Okay, JPA Hibernate. So that's why the JPA Hibernate came into picture, and it makes your code truly beautiful and scalable. So JDBC teaches you how the database works. JPA takes you to the next level. So in the next lectures, we will dive deep into the JPA mappings in the upcoming lectures. So for now, that's all. Whatever I have discussed, just go through those topics and do the revisions. Okay. And for now, hit the like button and subscribe and let me know in the comments if you prefer JDBC template or Hibernate. Okay. So that's all for now. Thank you, everyone. Bye.